high school preview show presented by Gold Athletics. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and as always, I'm joined by my partners, Tyler Amaral and Mukala Kabongo. Gentlemen, how are you this evening?
Doing great. I think this is like the time of year where the MIA power rankings start to make a little bit more sense. You could start paying attention to them. So we're really getting into it now.
Only a few more weeks left in the regular season. It flies.
It does. And you know, you mentioned the power rankings, Tyler, and I think that's a really good point. Of course, they come out on Tuesdays and Fridays. They should be out again on Friday. But to Tyler's point, there's only a couple weeks left in the regular season after this week. So you definitely should be paying attention to those power rankings in Massachusetts. And we're going to start to see more in terms of the rankings in the CIAC as well down in Connecticut. But in Massachusetts, definitely make sure you're paying attention to those power rankings because to Tyler's point, I think it's going to paint a much clearer picture now as we move forward. Before we get started here, I do want to remind you that if you're a winter or spring coach and you are looking for a fundraiser to help you raise some money for your program, visit goldathletics.com today. Matt Ross and his team have a variety of fundraisers available that can help you raise money. If you want to make that money, then visit goldathletics.com today for more information. All right, the slate's going to start getting a little bigger here in terms of the games and the significance of the games. And we're going to start here in the Bay State here in Massachusetts. We've got a big one in the Catholic Conference. Catholic Memorial visiting Xaverian. Now, here's the thing with this one. Xaverian has lost 2 games this year. Obviously, they've been without standout wide receiver and UMass commit Dave Shivagato. The offense has still been pretty good. The defense has had its moments. They're coming off a big win over St. John's Shrewsbury. Tyler, I'm going to start with you. Catholic Memorial, we haven't talked a lot about them, primarily because they played a couple of out-of-state games. They played some non-league games. But now we're going to get into the Catholic Conference slate in the schedule, and they're going to play a couple big ones here in the next 2 weeks, or in the next 2 of the next 3 weeks, I should say, coming up with Xaverian, and, of course, with St. John's Prep after that. But what are your thoughts on this one? I know a lot of people are going to look at this game on paper, and these two teams have played some really tight games the last few years. I know people are going to look at this and say CM is the prohibitive favorite going into it, but I wouldn't sleep on this Xaverian team, especially at home.
Yeah, I mean, Xaverian's given them some, tough battles in the past. CM's won, I think it's 7 in a row right now in this rivalry. Xaverian head coach Al Fernaro's accomplished it all. One of the best coaches in the state. The one thing he still has to check off is beating Catholic Memorial. He hasn't beaten them yet. So I think they're they're probably gonna give CM their toughest battle this year, definitely to this point. And then of course we have the prep game coming up in a couple weeks. But Xaverian CM, there's always fireworks. There's always fun. It seems to always go down to the last possession. Like, regardless of how the game looks early, one team could be up by 3 scores and then it ends up being a touchdown game and it's one on the final possession or one on the final play. So these teams have provided a lot of thrillers over the years. I think this one's going to be pretty similar. I think a lot of points are going to be scored. I think the defenses are going to, very good quarterback play. Kais Flannery going to Harvard, Will Woods, FBS Power 4 level quarterback. So it's going to be a great quarterback battle. You mentioned Shivagato being out for the year. Christian McIntyre's really taken that number 1 receiver role and ran with it for Xaverian. He's having a terrific year. I think there's going to, again, a lot of points going to be scored in this one, but I think without Shivagato, I think CM just has too many horses here. They're just have a little bit more in the talent department, and they're going to win this one. It's going to be something like 38-30, I think, something like that. I think we'll see over 60 points scored in the game, but give me the Knights here to stay undefeated.
Shivagato's out for the season?
Yeah, preseason. Yep, preseason. He got hurt, and then he's been out. He's been out since, and he's out for the year.
Ouch! Yeah, that's a major loss, especially for this game. The secondary that Catholic Memorial brings, they have 4 guys that could all play man to man for the entire game. They have really good defensive backs. Jackson Tucker, he's one of the best safeties in the state. Orion Fernandez, he's having a heck of a season right now. So that secondary can pose some issues playing man to man, which is going to open up that front seven, that front four for Catholic Memorial. But Zavarian is definitely going to have their moments where they they could have some explosive plays and make plays down the field. But Catholic Memorial, there's just too much speed and too many quick big play guys on that team. We can start with Ramar Thomas. We could start with the back Ibrahim Kaba. When you got Christian Simmons and Isaiah Simmons, talk about guys that could just turn short passes or short runs into big, long touchdowns in an instant. So this is definitely going to be a challenge for Zavarian's defense. And I mean, until proven otherwise, I have no reason to pick against Catholic Memorial until somebody shows me that they could keep up with them or keep a fight with them. But this will be But judging from the last two times these two teams have played, it's came down to the final possession. And we had a missed field goal last year. We had LaShawn Sharp throwing a touchdown to end the game the prior year. So this is probably going to be another instant classic game between these two teams, but I just think Catholic Memorial, there's just too much firepower on that team.
All right, there you have it. Next up, we have a battle of the undefeateds. Dartmouth at Barnstable. The Indians have kind of flown under the radar, a program that I think a lot of people in recent years, Richard White's done a great job there for a long time, but in recent years, the program has seen a revival. This is a big game for them, a prove-it game for them. For Barnstable, I would also categorize it as a prove-it game as well, because while you could say they had their prove-it game a couple weeks ago against Milford and they made quite the statement in a 35-6 win, this is another big test for Ross Jadcola's team. Tyler, I'm going to start with you. Is Dartmouth good enough to go into Barnstable and beat a Barnstable team that, quite frankly, when you look at their scores thus far this season, you can make an argument they're one of the two best teams in D3 right now?
Yeah, I think they are. We have them ranked as such in the top 5 in the state right now. They're very strong. So I think Barnstable's downfall in recent years has been line play, physicality. They've had the skill, but this year they have the line to match. So they're one of the better teams in the state. Dartmouth is an interesting team. Like I don't think many people really knew what to expect. They lost a lot, namely Jackson Hart off last year's team, but they've rebounded nicely. And Aiden Gendron has really ran with that quarterback role, and Michael Hawk in the backfield has been playing well recently. They can score. They haven't seen a defense like Barnstable. I suspect they can keep it close for a half, but I think Barnstable's going to run away and sort of lean on them in the second half. Barnstable's a very good running team. Kyle Coffin, Jason Dyer in the backfield, terrific duo. And then, of course, you got guys like Hassan Armstrong, anchoring both lines for them. So I think the Redhawks overall, they're just too physical, and that's going to overwhelm Dartmouth, and they end up pulling away, winning by 3 scores or so.
Yeah, I'm going with Barnstable in this one. I think this team, I think it was against Milford. It was
2 weeks ago.
They had that. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. I think that game really showed me a lot about Barnstable. I think they're trying to make some noise this season, and that was a stepping stone. And they've just been on a roll since then all season. So I'm gonna roll with Barnstable. I think they're just gonna wear them out in this one.
Yeah, I think, Barnstable has flown under the radar thus far this season. We talk about Dartmouth flying under the radar. As I said earlier, you can obviously make the same argument for this Barnstable team. And yes, I mean, I think beating Milford got people's attention. They're also a Division III team. I think a win this week would also get people's attention. They have LaSalle next week. That would also get people's attention. I think people do need to start putting some respect on the name, if you will, because I think D3, again, we've talked about this all season in Massachusetts. Division III is stacked. It's going to be probably the toughest bracket to get through in order to get to Gillette. This is going to be one of the toughest teams that people are going to have to get through in order to get to Gillette and play for a Division III state title. All right, we are going to come back a little north here. Next matchup is Foxborough at Canton. Canton coming off a tough loss last week to North Attleboro. Foxborough trouncing Oliver Ames 48-7. And Tyler, I think in Division 5, going into the season, I think a lot of people felt that this Foxborough team was the favorite. We knew Canton could potentially be a player in D4. In Division 5, I think a lot of people definitively said, nope, Foxborough's the favorite once again. Even with realignment and a couple new teams in the division, they should still be the favorite. Do you think that's the case? And do you think they've got a couple of tough games coming up here? You got Canton, you got North. You've also got Stoughton sprinkled in there. But is this an opportunity for Foxborough to really solidify itself as the favorite in D5?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, these next few weeks will really be telling. I think they're definitely in the conversation. The way they played KP was really eye-opening to me. That rivalry's been sort of lopsided in recent years. Not every year, but KP's really had their number. But the way Foxborough was able to match the physicality of a program like King Philip and be able to build that 12-0 lead and fall just short really was eye-opening to me, even in a loss. And I think in both of these teams' cases, right, like you've also got North and Mansfield in that half of the Hockomock. So you could be looking at a team like Foxborough or Canton, like some combination of these teams, Mansfield, North, Foxborough, Canton, they're going to have 2 or 3 conference losses heading into the playoffs, which I don't think that's really indicative of how good they are. I think all of these teams are contenders in their division. Foxborough, listen, I think they're probably the favorite in Division 5 right now. It's tough to kind of knock Shawsheen off that top pedestal there at this point because all they do is win.
Archbishop Williams, I think we're going to have to start putting them in that conversation too, that they're at least be amongst the favorites.
Sure, and North Reading too. I think Division 5, there's some good competition there at the top. But Foxborough, that physicality, especially at that level, I think is really going to wear on teams. Ryan Foley's a terrific player, one of the best two-way players in the state. Again, I think Canton's one of the top teams in Division 4. Like I think Tewksbury's the clear team, but if they're not 2, then they're 3. They're right at the top of that D4 pecking order. But North last week, Foxborough this week, still got Mansfield coming up. It's a brutal stretch. Hockomock League is a grind. We're going to see that here over the next couple of weeks. I think Foxborough wins this game. I think it's going to be something like 21-14, very physical battle, but I really like this Foxborough team.
Yeah, I think that loss last week to North Attleboro might do something to Canton because that was, we talked about if not now, then when, because this was their best year to beat North Attleboro and coming up short last week. That might have a lingering effect for them. And Foxborough at this time of the year, they're always playing well. We know how physical of a team they are. This is the weather is starting to get a little colder outside, so their brand of football really starts hitting their mode around this time of the year. So I think Foxborough is going to go in there and take this one. I just feel like that loss last week for Canton is going to be has some lingering effects.
All righty, now we're going to move on back to the South Shore. We got a big Patriot League matchup on Friday night. The undefeated Quincy Presidents. That's right. The Presidents are 5-0 thus far this season, coming off a big win last week over Plymouth South. They hit the road to take on Herb Devine's Scituate Sailors. Scituate bouncing back after a tough loss to Plymouth South 2 weeks ago by handling Pembroke last week. And Tyler, I think one of the things that's interesting about this matchup when I look at it is Quincy's one of those teams where people are like, all right, Plymouth South beat Scituate 2 weeks ago. Quincy beats Plymouth South in a really good game last week at Veteran Stadium. But this is really the test now. They got to go to Scituate, take on, Grayson Foley, Johnny Donovan, and that explosive Sailors offense. This is really going to be the litmus test for them. Is that how you look at this game? Is this truly the litmus test for this Quincy team? Or if they can go down there and just be competitive, it's a moral victory for Ed DeWitt's squad?
Well, listen, I think like the Patriot League in general, right? Like it's more balanced than it has been in years past. In the Fisher, you have Quincy.
We saw last week with Hingham beating Duxbury.
Right, exactly. So in the Fisher, you've got Quincy joining Scituate, Plymouth South, and Hanover, really balanced there. And then on the Keenan, of course, you got Hingham who just beat Duxbury. So you have those 2 teams in Marshfield as well. So it's going to makes for some very fun league races. I wouldn't count out Plymouth North in that Keenan race either. They're 4-1. But listen, I think Scituate, I heard they played pretty sloppy in that Plymouth South game. I heard they sort of let one get away, and it's probably a game they felt they should have won. And you saw the way that team responded, 35-0 win over Pembroke last week. So I think I think Scituate, I think that loss really motivated them. I think it was eye-opening. And it was the first time they lost in a while. They went undefeated last year and just really dominated all the way through. So sometimes losses can be good for teams. It could be wake-up calls. I think that's what this was for Scituate. Quincy's one of the best stories in the state to this point, but I think Scituate is going to keep it rolling here after that win 35-0 last week. I don't think it's going to be quite that lopsided, but I expect them to win this game by 10 points against Quincy.
Yeah, I was leaning towards the upset with Quincy, but I mean, as you said, that loss to Plymouth South from Scituate it probably woke them up a little bit. They played really well last week, and I just think going down there to Scituate, it's a tough place to play, and that's another team with so much firepower on offense. I think Quincy's gonna hang in there for a little bit, but then just the firepower of Scituate is going to take over, and they'll pull away in the second half. So I'm going with Scituate in this one.
Yeah, and again, as I mentioned, if you're Ed DeWitt and your staff, obviously the goal is to go down there and win this game. But if your program can be competitive in this game, and they can hang with Scituate, a program that has won multiple state titles in recent years and has been one of the two standard programs in your league, I think you got to take that. And again, we talk about moral victories on all our shows, I feel like, every week. But I do think that in high school football, when you're building a program, competing against the blue bloods in your league, and let's face it, Scituate in recent years has been a blue blood in the Patriot League. I think if Quincy can go down there and hang with them and play tough, I think that that's a building block for Ed DeWitt. I think you and your coaches have to take that, use it as a positive, and use it as motivation for the rest of this season. Okay, we're going to continue here with our preview this week. We're going to go to the Hockomock League, where we have King Philip visiting Taunton. Interesting matchup here. A couple of years ago, King Philip was really good. Taunton gave them a scare at MacTaz Field. King Philip coming off a bye, so they'll be rested. Taunton coming off a heartbreaking 21-20 loss to Franklin. I think from a matchup standpoint, and Mukala, I'm going to start with you. I think from a matchup standpoint, Taunton could be problematic here. They always have skill. We know that about the Tigers. You also have quarterback Dylan Keenan, who's a really good player who can make plays as a passer and as a runner. Could an upset be brewing here, dare I say? Can Taunton at home at Tiger Alexio Stadium get a win over King Philip?
I honestly think they can get a win over King Philip. As you said, Dylan Keenan, he's a dual threat. He can break big plays with his feet. He can make the big plays with his arms. He's got the arsenal of weapons that can do it. Their offense does present some issues for King Philip, but on the opposite end, they're gonna be able to handle King Philip's physicality. It's getting cold outside, and King Philip, they like to beat you up, and the way they run their offense with that physical running game, and sometimes when it gets cold, you don't want to tackle somebody over and over again. So this is two different styles, but Taunton can pull off the upset. But am I gonna pick them to pull off the upset? No, there's too much history with King Philip this time of the year and how well they play in October and going into November. So I think this will be a good game, but in the end, I just think King Philip is gonna pull out a narrow victory over Taunton.
Yeah, I think it was a well-timed bye for King Philip, coming off two physical games against Foxborough and Natick. This is going to be a different, kind of contrasting styles from what they've seen in the past. Taunton likes to play more spread. They like to play with their speed. Dylan Keenan, I really think he's an FCS or Division II level arm talent. Maybe he needs a post-grad year next year, but I think he has a terrific arm talent. And Amari Texera has really emerged as a top weapon for Taunton as well. With that said, though, it's sort of similar to what I said with Foxborough. Like, KP's is just a team that's going to lean on you in the second half. They're going to be able to run the ball. They got their two backs, of course, in King and Kanto Osorio. It's tough to beat KP when this at any point, but especially as we get closer to November, that's where KP hits its stride. Warriors are going to win this one. I think they'll be able to contain Keenan in that offense, win something like 28-14.
Yeah. Should be a good one. You are watching the high school preview show presented by Gold Athletics. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by my partners, Tyler Amaral and Mukala Kabongo. I do want to remind you guys that if you're a high school coach out there, winter or spring, and you need to raise money for your program, visit goldathletics.com today. Matt Ross and his team have a variety of fundraisers that can help you make that money. Again, if you're looking to raise money, and for you winter coaches, your season is around the corner, visit goldathletics.com today. Matt Ross and his team will get you set up with a fundraiser that works for your program and your community. Again, visit goldathletics.com today. All right, next up, we have what I consider to be one of the best interstate matchups on the interstate schedule this season, and that is Andover visiting Pinkerton. Of course, Pinkerton beat Andover in Andover last year en route to a Division I state title. Brian O'Reilly's got another strong squad. The Astros look to be the favorite in Division I in New Hampshire. They're going to host Andover. Pinkerton traditionally has been a tough place to play. Folks in Brockton can attest to that. It's been a tough place to play through the years. And while Andover is better under first-year coach Jay Fielding, this is still going to be a tough game for the Warriors. Mukala, I'm going to start with you. Can Andover go up there in that environment and beat a Pinkerton program that has been so good the last couple of years?
I believe Andover can go up there and give Pinkerton a game and pull off the upset. I mean, just the way Coach Fielding has those guys playing, they've been playing so well this entire season. You know, they've got their losses, but in each game, we've seen the explosive plays. We've seen the physicality. We've seen the vision of what Coach Fielding wants to do offensively and defensively. And I think in year one, if he can go up there and get a win over Pinkerton, that will make a big time statement just for Coach Fielding and his staff of what they're trying to accomplish at Andover. So this is a big opportunity for those guys. And and then next week they got Central Catholic. So you get this one, get the momentum going into Central Catholic.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, this is a tough 2-game stretch, but if you're able to if you haven't pulled this one off this weekend, you're going to go into Central Catholic with a lot of confidence. So I'm going to go with Andover. I think they're going to play. I really believe in what Coach Fielding is doing. They've been playing really well. I mean, their conference, the MVC, prepares you for matchups like this. They've already had some tough matchups already, so I think those guys are going to be ready for the task at hand.
Listen, Pinkerton's a top 2 team in the state of New Hampshire. I don't know. I honestly don't know who's better between Pinkerton and Bedford. I think that's more of a 1A, 1B than a 1 and 2. Two great programs.
I'd probably give Pinkerton the edge only because of the defending champs. They have enough back, but Bedford's been lying in the weeds all year. I think a lot of people, after them not winning it last year, kind of took them for granted in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I agree. But I think this is big for both teams, right? Andover wants to win and beat one of the top two teams in New Hampshire under Coach Fielding in his first year. It'd be a big win as they gear up for the playoffs here in Massachusetts. And then on the flip side, for Pinkerton, they're playing a good Massachusetts program. And after Londonderry just came down and beat Duxbury, if Pinkerton is able to beat Andover for a second consecutive year, that's good for New Hampshire football. That's big for the entire state. So this is a big matchup here. I think Pinkerton wins. I think it's going to be much closer than last year. I think it was 40-17 last year. I don't see a blowout this year. I think it's going to be pretty low scoring, 21-17, something like that, 21-14 maybe. But give me the Astros at home.
I'm going to say this, though. Kudos to these New Hampshire programs, because New Hampshire, the last couple of years in particular, has done really well in these interstate matchups. Really well. If you think about it, Londonderry beat Chelmsford last year, and they go down and beat Duxbury this year. Pinkerton beats Andover last year. You just had Salem beat Cumberland, Rhode Island last weekend. So New Hampshire has done really well in these interstate matchups, and I think it's a testament to how good the D1 football is in New Hampshire. You've got some really good programs, and I'm sure you got Nashua North, Nashua South. South's been pretty good the last couple of years. Anthony Nalen is starting to get it going at Bishop Girton. They're going to be a program that's eventually, they've started to play out-of-state games now. That's going to be a program that when they eventually get to where they could be, and there's talent in that program, they could start playing some bigger programs in Massachusetts and possibly Rhode Island. So, yeah, and Bedford, of course, beating Thornton Academy a couple weeks ago, who then turned around and beat Portland. So my point is, I think when you look at the landscape of high school football in New England, specifically in New Hampshire, those New Hampshire programs have proven that they are good enough to compete, especially the Division I programs more so. They have proven that they're good enough to compete with these programs in Massachusetts. And I think that is huge for New Hampshire high school football. Joe Dub Beauregard, great name, joins us. Love what Andover is looking like. Good game for bragging rights. Great stuff, guys, as always. Joe, thank you for checking in, my friend. We appreciate it. Means a lot to us. We appreciate the support, and we appreciate you watching the show. All right, Amaral's back after briefly pulling a Houdini. And since you disappeared and came back, Amaral, we're going to start with you. Milton at Walpole. Of course, these two longtime Bay State rivals, very familiar with each other. They played in the D3 Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Milton coming off a huge 35-7 win over Wachusett. It helped notch Steve Dombrowski his 200th career win as a head coach. Should be a good one. Walpole seems to do this every year, by the way. They get off to a slow start. Then they tend to pick it up in the middle portion of their schedule. Is this a year where we see that again with this Walpole team, Tyler? Is this one of those years where this team is starting to round into form? They're playing their best football at the right time, and they could be a potential threat in Division IV.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've made like the last couple of years, as you said, they've started slow. They were sort of a 500 team going into the playoffs, and then in 2 years ago they made it to the state championship game, lost to Milton. Last year they made it to the state semifinals and lost to Mansfield. So they're certainly capable of going on runs, and both of those runs were made in Division III. Now they're in Division IV. They're breaking in a lot of new faces. They still have guys like Dylan Needham, but a lot of new guys and inexperience. I think this team's going to get hot here, and I think they're going to make another run. I don't know if it's going to be to the semifinals or state finals again, but I would expect them to win a game in the Division IV playoffs. Milton, on the other hand, they had that tough loss to Weymouth, and then they really had that resounding win last week against Wachusett. And it wasn't like the normal, Milton shootout. They really dominated that game, held a good Wachusett offense to 7 points. So I like Milton here. I think they're the more complete team. I think they're going to win this one. Should be pretty competitive. 28-17, maybe 28-20, something like that, in that range. Give me the Wildcats.
Yeah, I think this is going to be another entertaining ball game between these two teams. Milton, good bounce back game for them last week after that loss to Weymouth. They didn't let that linger. Walpole, they're almost kind of similar as far as the strategy-wise and philosophy-wise on offensive philosophy. Both teams like to throw that ball down the field, spread it out, get the guys open. But I'm gonna lean towards Milton in this one. I think losing that loss to Weymouth, might have gave them a little more boost to try to close out these next couple of weeks with some good performances. Well, I'm gonna go with Milton, and also congratulations to Coach on his 200th win.
Yeah, I agree. Congratulations, Dembo, on picking up your 200th win. You've been one of the best coaches in the state the last 20 years. But your work beyond what you've done as a coach for football in this state, to me, is just as important as your 200 wins. So Steve Dombrowski is, in many ways, the face of high school football in Massachusetts for all that he does for the sport and the Coaches Association. So congratulations from us to you, Coach, on your 200th win. Robert Martin checks in. New Hampshire allowed to practice year-round, big advantage. I would agree. I would agree that it is an advantage. But the other thing I would say, though, is these programs that have had success the last couple of years are very well coached. You talk about Jimmy Lazon at Londonderry, terrific coach. Obviously, Brian O'Reilly at Pinkerton, he's a legend. Okay, terrific coach. Zach Matthews at Bedford. I mean, these are really good coaches. So the fact that their programs are able to play these interstate matchups and win, sure, you can attribute it to whatever advantage they may have in their calendar, and I think that that's a fair point. But I also think these programs are well coached. They're not winning these games by accident. Robert checks back in. MIA needs to let teams practice much earlier. Couldn't agree with you more, man. I'll take it a step further. The MIA needs to do a lot of things different when it comes to football. But, now's not the time. People know how I feel about that. A lot needs to change. All right, next up we have Shrewsbury at Leominster in a really good Central Mass matchup here. Leominster bouncing back with a win last week. Tyler, we're going to go a little rapid fire here. Thoughts on this one? Should be a good one. Leominster has kind of taken the foot off the gas a little bit offensively, but they're still doing what they need to do to win games.
They are, and I think Shrewsbury's been sort of up and down here. They've had some nice wins, but they're 3-2. I think Leominster maybe not quite as good as people thought they would be. Coming into the season, I still think they'll be like a top 12 seed in the Division I playoffs. Leominster wins this one. Osiris Lopez throws a few scores.
Yeah, I think for Leominster, they just got to find the other ways to win instead of trying to put up a lot of points. They're finding other ways to win. Defensively, efficient offense. Not as much as a big play. Take their time more marching down the field. So
and those are great points, Mukala. That's how you have to win this time of year. You talk about October going into November. I mean, be nice to win in a shootout every week, but you got to win that way too.
Right, definitely. And as we already stated, there's only 3 weeks left in the regular season. So this is that time where you just want to, put together some good performances these next couple weeks with power rankings coming out every Tuesdays and Fridays. You want to put yourself in the best position to, get a good seed. So I think I still have faith in this Leominster team that they'll make some noise in the playoffs. There's just too much talent on that team. The games they did lose were to some really good teams, so no shame in that. But learning lesson for them. I'm gonna go with Leominster in this one.
Yeah, it should be another good one. All right, next up we're going to go to the North Shore, and Mukala, I'm going to pick up right where you left off here, my friend. Beverly at Masco. Interesting matchup here. Beverly football appears to be on the way back. Masco, another program coming into the season in D3 that I think a lot of us thought could potentially be a surprise sleeper. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, man. Masco had that one hit slip up against Winchester. Tough loss for them, but then they bounced right back to get a big road win at Danvers last week. It's a great win. Beverly, unfortunately, they fell to Marblehead, which is still undefeated and having a great season. But the Beverly offense still showed some big play moments in that game. Danny Pierce and Floyd White. I like the combination of those two, the quarterback and receiver. But going into Masco's putting up a lot of points. They are putting up a lot of points, and they're putting them up fast. This might be a shootout. This might be a game that goes into the 30s or 40s. But I'm gonna go. I should pick Beverly because bias reasons. There's some players I grew up with some of their relatives on that team, but I'm going Masco on this one. I think Masco's gonna at home. They're gonna pull this one out.
Yeah, I referenced that game against Winchester last week for Masco. Tough loss for them, but I think that game said more about Winchester than it did about Masco. This Masco team's really good. They have a lot of skill returning, led by Jack Fabiano, an all-state level running back. Chieftains win this one. Marblehead put up 35 on Beverly last week. I think Masco is capable of doing that, if not more. Masco wins.
All right, we're going to stay in that neck of the woods. And Mukala, I'm going to bounce right back to you here. We got North Reading at Amesbury. Of course, we talked about North Reading earlier as being a team to keep an eye on in Division 5. This Amesbury program has been really good as well this season, coming off a win last week. Thoughts on this one? How do you think that this one will ultimately play out?
This was another tough one for me to look at. Both teams, like Amesbury, quite the story for them this season. They're playing really well. North Reading presents some challenges for them. I think we're going to see another grinded out game, too, back and forth affair, but close one. But I think I'm going to lean towards Amesbury in this one. Amesbury.
North Reading's one of the best teams in D5. Amesbury, one of the top teams in D7. Amesbury's had North Reading's number in recent years, even with those North Reading teams in 2021 and 2022. Amesbury beat them in the regular season both years, even though North Reading made it to Gillette both years. I think that trend continues here. This Amesbury team is very physical, especially at the lower levels. Amesbury wins this one. It's going to be close, though, 20-17.
All right, we have another big matchup in the Patriot League. It features Hanover at Plymouth South. Plymouth South, of course, looking to bounce back after a tough loss last week to Quincy. Hanover, another Division 5 program that we need to talk about. D5 went from a division where we thought it might be a 2 or 3 team race the last couple of years to now being a division that features some legitimate teams. Tyler, I'm going to start with you here, coming back to your neck of the woods. Can Hanover go into Plymouth South and take care of business, or do the Panthers bounce back?
This one's tough. I think this is, every week there's at least one game that I really struggle to pick. I think that's the game for me this week. I lean Hanover. I think they just have more playmakers. They're a little bit more explosive. Brandon Errico is a terrific player. I think Hanover wins. They can score. I think Plymouth South's going to struggle to contain them a little bit. 35-28, something in that vicinity. Give me Hanover.
Plymouth South's already got one upset this season, so why not go for another one? I'm going to go with Plymouth South in this one.
It should be a high-scoring affair. We're going to go back up north of the city here for Stoneham at Burlington. Mukala, I'm going to start with you. Stoneham coming off a tough loss last week to Wilmington. Can they go into Burlington and beat the Red Devils?
Hey, I was at the game last year when these two teams faced off, and it was a pretty entertaining game. That that Stoneham running game is tough to deal with, but Burlington
Old
coming
school.
in here, yeah, they're really old school. They're going to take 15, 8, 17, 16, 17, 18, maybe 20 plays a drive. So Burlington better be prepared for that. But I think Burlington's going to win this one, though. I think Burlington wants a little payback from last year, losing to these guys. So, and they got themselves in a good position right now. So Burlington in this one.
Burlington's 5-0. They've only given up 42 points on the year. Defense is playing well. Ryan Brooks, the Marist commit, is one of the most underrated players in the state. Red Devils win this one. I think it's going to be, a quick moving game and a low scoring game. 17-10, 17-14, something like that. Red Devils win.
Yeah, I agree with you on Brooks. Terrific two-way player that I don't think enough people are talking about. I don't think he gets enough pub. As you mentioned, he is the Marist commit. He's a good football player, and I think he's going to get some of that much-needed attention as we get into the playoffs with Burlington. All right, next up, we have a Catholic school matchup, Bishop Fien at Bishop Fenwick. Tyler, I'm going to start with you. Shamrocks looking pretty solid in Division II. They appear to be one of the favorites along with CM and Winchester. There's other teams that are going to be in that conversation as well. Lincoln Sudbury, Wellesley, Bridgewater, Raynham. Thoughts on how this one plays out? Fien has looked the part so far this season. Coming into this one, they only have one loss, and that's to Zavarian week 1. Shamrocks have been pretty good. Fenwick's going to have their hands full in this one.
Fenwick will have their hands full. I like the way the Shamrocks are playing right now. They're playing a more difficult schedule than they have in the past as they prepare to make a run here in Division II. Remember, this is a non-league game as well because the Catholic Central was just Fien and Fenwick, Fien and St. Mary's this year before Fien goes independent starting next year. I think Fien's just going to be too big, too physical, too fast in this one. Crusaders might be able to keep it close for half. Fiend's going to pull away in the second half, but I like what Fenwick's done as well with that non-conference schedule. They played Archie's, which is a conference game, and they lost, but they lost the non-league games to Marblehead, Gloucester. They'll be battle-tested ahead of the Division 6 playoffs.
Yeah, Fien is a physical football team. It's tough to score on them. Fenwick got some big play guys that can make some plays. Good young quarterback, but Fien is just they're just too good right now. That's a really good football team all around, and I think they're gonna go in there and get the win.
Yeah, and to your point, the physicality is the key with them. Brian Pinnabell, firm believer in running the football, leaning on your defense. It's been a recipe for success there for them since he took over there. I expect more of the same this week, and that's why I think, again, when we talk about favorites in D2, the conversation might start with CM and Fien, and then you have the Winchesters and the Lincoln Sudburys of the world that also deserve to be in that conversation, but this Fien team is really good. Mukala, I'm going to come right back at you here. We've got Bill Ricca at Lowell. Thoughts on that one?
Oh, man. This Lowell team, I've seen some film on them. this Lowell team is impressive. They're really impressive. They got the ground game. They got some good receivers. Christensen. He's a solid receiver. A good basketball player too. And the young running back Joshua, he's a speedster. He can really break free. Bill Ricker coming off a very, very tough loss to a really good Tewksbury team. They're going to try to bounce back. This should be a good one, but I think Lowell is trying to establish themselves and put themselves in a great spot here. And I think they're going to come out. And, Lowell, the only game they lost was, the final seconds against Tewksbury where they were up late in the fourth quarter. So this is a really good Lowell team. I think it's going to come out with the win.
I was going to say, are we sleeping on this Lowell team? Should we be talking about them more?
Yeah, I think so. I think we should talk about them more. They're talented. I will say that. They are very talented.
And they're well coached now, with all due respect to anybody that was there before, but coaching does matter, especially at this level. And it seems like they've got a lot going for themselves right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's been an impressive season for Lowell. It's one of the better seasons I can remember from them in the last decade. This is a chance for them to make a statement here, really be able to win this game. But Bill Ricka, they're tough to read. I think they're a good team, but they just ran into a buzzsaw last week against Tewksbury, lost by 35. I lean Lowell here too. I do. I think it's going to be 24-17, something like that. Really back and forth game. I do like what Lowell is building this year. They're trending towards having a home game in the Division I playoffs, which I don't think many people would have predicted before the season. Lowell wins again here.
Yeah, should be a good one. But Lowell is a team to keep an eye on, especially as a public school in Division I. All right, we're going to go to Central Mass for our next matchup. Tyler, I'm going to start with you. Clinton at West Boylston. Pretty good matchup here. This Clinton team figures to be a player in Division 7. West Boylston, probably the favorite, I would say, if not one of the top two favorites in Division 8. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I thought Clinton was going to be a little bit closer to Northbridge and Uxbridge entering the year. They returned a lot of pieces. They were dominated by Northbridge week 1. I still think they're a good team though, and they're one of these teams that's jockeying for a home game or potentially 2 home games in the Division 7 playoffs. West Boylston, though, they just continue to do what they do. They just come at you with that rushing attack led by Dominic Ranzoni. He's one of the best backs in the state, regardless of a division. We talk about that physicality again here, especially when you play in these lower divisions, right? Division 7, Division 8. You don't see teams that are that big, that physical, that nasty, especially in the run game that often. West Boylston has that. They're going to win again here.
Yeah, and then Ranzoni had 300 yards last week.
That sounds right. Yeah, I was kind of following that game along on Twitter.
Yeah. It's gonna be too much of that running game for Clinton to handle. Give me West Boylston in this one. They're also a team. They're on the path of trying to get 4 in a row, and they look like they're not slowing down for nobody. So yeah.
And that's Mukala's boy there, Ranzoni. So there you go. Next up, we have Millbury at Uxbridge. Uxbridge upset last week, snapping the state's longest winning streak. They lost to Auburn at home. Will they get revenge here against a Millbury squad that started 3-0 but has lost a couple of games since? Does Uxbridge bounce back? We still think that they're probably going to be the favorite in D7, Tyler. But I also don't think a lot of us saw Auburn going in there and winning the way they did last week. I'm of the belief for a program like Uxbridge, you're still the favorite in your division. Everybody wants to go undefeated, but you know what? It's not the worst thing in the world that they lost. I think it might serve as motivation for the rest of the season and put them on a path where they can win another state title.
Yeah, I would say they're probably still the favorite. But Division 7 is more crowded than I thought it was going to be. You've got Uxbridge, you've got Cohasset, you've got Amesbury, you've got Northbridge. It's a pretty good division, and it's not going to be as easy as they've made it look over the last couple of years. With that said, though, I think they do avenge last week's loss. They start a new winning streak here. Uxbridge wins. That offense is just really tough to stop. I don't see them slowing down. The defense was the issue against Auburn. Defense has a bounce back game. Uxbridge wins.
Yeah, Uxbridge is gonna bounce back after that loss last week. Try to start another streak going. So give me Uxbridge in this one.
All right, next up, we're going to go north of the city again. We have Wakefield at Wilmington. Mukala, I'm going to start with you. Interesting matchup here between two programs that have bounced back and have had nice seasons so far. Should be a really good game. It should be a tight game. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, Wilmington caught with the big one last week, caught a lot of people by surprise with that win over Stoneham. That's like one of those confidence boosting wins. And Wakefield, that's another team that can really move the ball. The quarterback McNeely, he's got an arm on him, and they got some playmakers surrounding him as well. But Wilmington's kind of rolling right now. They're kind of rolling right now, and I'm gonna pick them in this one. They're playing really well. I was impressed with them last week.
It was an impressive win. It's one of the biggest wins for Wilmington football in quite some time. First year coach Joe Kavanaugh doing a terrific job at Wilmington. With that said, I like Wakefield here, Weston McNeely, and Jaden Fullerton in the backfield. They're going to make some plays here. This Wilmington defense, though, specifically is really good. So I think it's going to be more low scoring than you might expect given the Wakefield score. It's going to be like 17-14.
Well, there you go. You know what, Tyler? I think that was your little cherub. I don't think that they agree with your prediction there. So.
No, I think, that was my 3-year-old. She sounded too angry. It's just kind of been a little chaotic today. I had to go off screen a couple times because my stupid ass cat was running around with a loaf of bread. So like, I wonder, I wish I had like I wish I got that on video there. I think we would get a little bit more views if somebody chasing the cat around with the loaf of bread, where I don't even know how he accessed it.
Well, we could have had you chasing the cat, this gigantic cat, apparently, that has a mouth and a jaw that's strong enough to hold a loaf of bread. But we could have had you chasing around the gigantic cat to the Benny Hill theme song. So that would have been pretty good if you're running around with the. All right, next up, we're going to go to the Tri Valley. And I think, Tyler, you put this well in the preview this week, and you stated it well, I should say. All of a sudden, I can't speak English. But this is essentially a de facto Tri-Valley championship game on the big side here between an Ashland program that looks like they bounced back. They did lose to Archbishop Williams, and a Holliston program that, let's face it, whether it's Todd Kiley or Mike Uroff, this program's going to be in the hunt year in and year out. This should be another good one between these two longtime Tri-Valley rivals.
I think it is going to be a good one. Division 4 seeding's also at stake here. Ashland lost to Archbishop Williams. Halston's lost a couple non-conference games as well to Lincoln Sudbury and Canton. So their 3 losses are all to quality opponents. I suspect Ashland's going to go on the road here and get this one done. I think it's going to be 21-14 probably as well. I'll go with here, but I like the Clockers to win it.
Yeah, I like Ashland to go in this one and get the win. It's going to be a good road win for them. Give me Ashland.
So you guys, both of you have them punching in, clocking in, and getting a really workmanlike win on Friday night. All right, I know that was stupid, but whatever. I had to throw that in. And nothing will top the cat with the loaf of bread. I know. All right. Next up, we're going to go over to the ISL, and Mukala, you're going to be there for this one on Saturday. Milton Academy at BBNN. Longtime ISL rivals, both coming off of wins last week. BBNN beating Belmont Hill 30-7. Milton Academy, I was there for this one, beating Loomis Chaffee 24-6. And again, when you look at this game in recent years, it's kind of been a back and forth kind of thing. This has developed into one of the best rivalries, if not the best rivalry in the ISL. Should be a good one between two teams that are skilled but also very physical. And when I look at this matchup, I think it's going to come down to line play. I think both of these teams have enough skill that they're going to make big plays, but I really do think it's going to come down to line play and whether or not BBNN can run against this Milton Academy front, and can this Milton Academy front hold up against BBNN. Now, I will say this. 2 weeks ago, Milton Academy went up and won at St. Paul's. They held up against that run game. The question is, can they hold up against this run game? That's going to be the key here. You got Sam Kelly coming off a big game last week against Belmont Hill. We know Mike Willie's patient with the run game. Damon Taylor, quarterback, he's not afraid to run it. again, I think when you look at this game, it's going to come down to who wins the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and rivalry games, you can just throw out everything,
Yep.
whether it's like new faces in there, just throw it all out. But I mean, Damon Taylor, he's a really good quarterback, and then you got another really good quarterback in McNeil on the other side. So this is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one to watch. Watching Milton Academy against Tabor, I mean, Tabor was just they're just running on a different level right now offensively. I mean, put up like 60 the other weekend, but in that game, Milton Academy was in that game. They were in it for a little bit. They had the lead. They created turnovers. They played really well. It was just it was just too much offense on that opposite side. But this might be a little more low scoring, not low scoring, but maybe in like the 20s or so. But I think McNeil is gonna lead his team to victory in this one, and was probably gonna be one of the better games of the day. And I saw before the game was at 12 p.m. Then now they changed it to 6 p.m. So, I mean, prime time.
Prime time. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun game here. I think it might be considered a minor upset at this point in time. I think I'm going to go with BB&N, though. I'm a believer in Mike Willie. I think he's one of the best coaches in New England. They had that tough loss early to start the season, but I think they're going to get things rolling here as the season progresses here. Just trying to figure out life, post McCormick. So I think BB&N gets the job done here. It's going to be a fun game back and forth, 27-21.
I think I'm gonna do my Mike Willie impression here. Coach, forgive me if you don't think I sound like you, but after what Amaral just said about him being one of the best coaches in New England, I could totally see Coach Willie going, Tyler, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. You're too kind, sir. I really appreciate that. No, we have a lot of great coaches here in the knapsack. Really appreciate it, though, Tyler. Coach Willie, if you're watching the show, let me know what you think of the impression. I don't think it's bad, but you may not like it. All right, we're going to go to Connecticut here. A couple big games in Connecticut. First one, we have Maloney at Fairfield Prep. Really good matchup here. Maloney comes into this one undefeated. Fairfield Prep has a loss. Both of these teams are teams that traditionally in recent years have been really good and have been in the mix in the CIAC, especially once you get to playoff time after Thanksgiving. Should be a pretty good test for both of these teams as we start to get into the meat of the schedule here. We've got some big games coming up in Connecticut in the next couple weeks. Next week, you have a Mega Powers matchup with Greenwich and Ucane. This should be a really good matchup, though. The Spartans were supposed to be, I think a lot of people had higher expectations for them last year. They didn't necessarily live up to those. I think that they're playing above expectations this year. In a lot of ways, they're playing with house money. This should be a pretty good game against a Fairfield Prep team that's skilled, is getting quality quarterback play. Jesuits are always tough. This should be a pretty good game.
Yeah, it'll be a good game. I think Fairfield Prep wins. I do like these Class LL versus the Class L crossovers, though. They tend to be pretty fun. I think Fairfield Prep wins this one, though.
Yeah, I agree with Tyler. Fairfield Prep is going to win this one. Probably an entertaining game. We'll get in this one, but Fairfield in the end is going to pull this one out.
And you have another cross-class matchup as well with Massac and Killingly. Killingly coming off a bye week. Chad Neal's squad's been playing unbelievable football. They've been in my opinion, they've been a top 3 program in the state of Connecticut, but at the very least, they've been a top 5 program all year. They've been dominating there in the quiet corner. They're poised to win it again. And you got the Allard brothers. I mean, their running game is as good as any in New England, really. I mean, they can line up and run it on anybody. Just ask Bishop Hendricken, who they beat earlier this year, 41-32, in a signature win for the Trailblazers. Some people would say, though, this Massac team coming in at 2-2, Aaron Champagne at quarterback, a lot of people are saying this is when the Panthers are going to start playing their best football. Are we on upset alert here? Can Massac go into Killingly and win this game?
I don't think so. That Killingly win over Hendricken is really eye-opening to me. I think it should be like a competitive game. I don't think Massac's going to get blown out or anything, but I like Killingly here.
I like Killingly as well. That's all I got.
That's all he's got. All right, we're going to go up to Maine here. Marshwood at Kennebunk. Both teams are looking for a quality win as the regular season is nearing an end in Maine. Alex Rotzko's got Marshwood back on track here this year. should be a really fun matchup up in Maine.
Yeah, I think it will be fun. I think I lean Kennebunk here. Again, both teams sort of jockeying for playoff position here. The regular season and Vermont and Maine really wraps up quickly here. I think 2 weeks left?
2 weeks, yeah, and then they're in their playoffs. Yep.
Yeah, just 2 weeks left, and then you got the Halloween weekend playoff start. So we're really getting down to it up there in Maine. I think Kennebunk gets this one done though.
Yeah, I think Marshwood can go in there and get it done. They've been flying under the radar, and of course, look, and Kennebunk's been really good the last couple of years. This will be, in a lot of ways, this will be a table-setting matchup once we get into the class playoffs up there in Maine. We're going to go over to New Hampshire now. Big matchup, in-state matchup here in Division I. Bishop Girton at Bedford. Bishop Girton's been pretty good this year. They've had a couple of high-scoring losses, but Anthony Nalen has this program going in the right direction. Bedford is Bedford. You know that they can beat you any which way. They can win a shootout. They can win a defensive game. They've been more offensive oriented as a program thus far this season, but this should be a pretty good matchup between two teams. Well, Bedford is amongst the favorites in D1, but this Girton team could surprise people if they get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Anthony Nalen is doing a good job with this program. Bishop Girton, they lost last week to Nashville South. I wonder if they were sort of looking ahead. They were undefeated before that game.
And when you look at that game, they jumped all over South early, and then South came back in the second half.
Yeah, and then on the other side is Bedford plays at Londonderry next week, so there's a potential for them to be looking ahead in this one. Ultimately, though, that Bedford defense, we know they're going to be stifling. They're going to dominate most opponents. I think that's going to be the case again here. Bedford wins again. I still think they're right there with Pinkerton, as I said earlier, sort of 1A and 1B in the state. Bedford wins this one.
Bedford's still proving like they're the top of the top. They're the team, the team everybody's trying to measure up to be. And I think this is going to be no different. I think Bedford's going to go in this one and win this one convincingly.
Yeah, that Girton team can score points. We'll see if Bedford's defense, can play up to the level we're used to under Coach Matthews. They've played really good defense since he took over there, and that's the expectation. But as I said too, they can also get into a shootout and win. Their offense doesn't get nearly as much praise as it should. They've been really good offensively the last couple of years in particular. All right, next up, we're going to go down to the Ocean State, and this is the best game of the weekend in Rhode Island. LaSalle at St. Ray's. Prove-it game for St. Ray's. If the Saints are who we think they could be in Division II in Rhode Island, they're going to need this one. LaSalle coming off a bye after a big win over rival Bishop Hendricken. I don't see Dan Copen allowing a letdown here. They know this is a big game for them. It's a big Catholic game, too, for them, between two Catholic schools in Rhode Island. St. Ray's, measuring stick game. For LaSalle, you want to prove that you're still one of the two best programs in the state when it comes to power programs. Tyler, I'm going to start with you. Can the Rams go into Pawtucket and win this one?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you have to give them the title of best team in Rhode Island after they beat Hendricken. You look at the schedule those teams played Chaminade and then BC High, North Kingstown, St. John's Prep, Hendricken.
A very good schedule. We talk about teams that have played good schedules in New England. LaSalle has played one of the best schedules in New England.
They have, and then so you've got St. Ray's this week, and then next week they host Barnstable. So it's been a brutal schedule, but these I think we should applaud teams like Hendricken and LaSalle who are consistently in the state championship game, but they don't want to just load their schedule with softer opponents and teams they know that they're going to beat up on. They want to challenge themselves against teams from across New England and into New York. I think LaSalle's going to be ready. LaSalle's going to be ready. They're going to be more battle tested. They're going to win this one. Like you said, measuring stick game for St. Ray's, but I think LaSalle just has too much skill here, too much big game experience.
Yeah, and that win over Bishop Hendricken too, that showed a lot. The way they were just able to, stay poised in that overtime, could make that pass to Bearden, who made a hell of a catch to give LaSalle that win. I think they're just they play some of the toughest teams, as you already mentioned. So they'll be really prepared for this one. LaSalle in this one.
Yeah, again, like I said, for St. Ray's, this is. I'm not going to sit here and say this is a coming out party game for them, but a lot of people in Rhode Island are excited about them. Their skill is really good. They can match up with this LaSalle team. It's really, once again, going to come down to the line of scrimmage and line play. Finally, Vermont, Rutland at Hartford. Hurricanes are rolling. They look to be going into the playoffs with some momentum here as the regular season in Vermont starts to wrap up. It wraps up next week. Playoffs start in 2 weeks. Look, for Rutland, they got off to a really good start, and I think a lot of people thought, all right, the Red Raiders are going to be the team to beat in Division I. And then all of a sudden, Hartford, forget about Division I when it comes to the state, all of a sudden now Hartford is proving not only are they the best program in their division, they're the best program in the state. They have been, at least. This will be a litmus test game for the Hurricanes. So if they win this one, I think we could start to talk about them finishing the rest of the season and winning it all.
Yeah, I think they've sort of already proven that. I mean, this was going to be Rutland. I thought first couple of weeks of the season, I thought they were the number one team in Vermont.
So did I. They looked really good.
They did, and I think that's swung over to Hartford now. Hartford's just been an absolute wagon. They haven't really played in any competitive games to this point. I think Hartford continues.
You beat Burton, you beat St. Johnsbury. I mean, Middlebury. They've had some big wins.
They have. I don't think this one's going to be a blowout, but I do think Hartford keeps it going and continues that momentum here as we near the Vermont playoffs.
Yeah, you always want to end the season well, playing well, heading into the postseason. And I think Hartford is going to make a statement and pull this one out, and just keep the momentum going as the season's winding down.
All right, gentlemen. Any final thoughts here as we wrap up this week's show?
Nothing new.
Conference plays in
closing
full
thoughts.
effect. Yeah, conference plays in full effect. So there's going to be a lot of pivotal matchups coming up in the next couple weeks. So people watch out and bundle up too for the night games. Bundle up. I was freezing last week, so get your jackets out.
Yeah, as the legendary Coach John Lee said at Walpole when Mike Lynch came over to do a high five on the then Rebels, he told his players, "Dress warm. Channel 5's coming." So there you go.
Yeah.
We'll end on that note. Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of the High School Preview Show. For Tyler Amaral and Mukala Kabongo, I'm John Sarianides. We will be back with you next week. Until then, get out there and enjoy the games. And like Mukala said, dress warm.